Hello, my name is Cassie, and I just wanted to do a video about our journey through the NICU. I'm a mother of three. I have a 12-year-old girl, a 2-year-old girl, and then we had our last one, our son, who was about to be 5 months on October 7th. It's going by pretty fast. And he is currently in the NICU. I'm gonna give you a little, excuse my shirt, I was taking my daughter out of the shower. I'm gonna give you a little background on us, our journey, how we got to where we are now. So we've been pregnant 5 times and we have 3 kids. The first one was back in 2007. We lost that one at 6 weeks. And then we had our 12-year-old, March 2008. And then we tried for many, many years. We couldn't get pregnant. I went to OBGYN started in 2015. Was paying money out of my pocket because I didn't have insurance. So he started giving me, I believe it was metformin. I started taking it and I didn't like it, so I stopped. And then I came to the conclusion that we were just going to be stuck with one kid for the rest of our lives. We tried for many, many years. I was like, I guess it's just not going to happen. So I stopped going to the doctor because it got too expensive. I was like, I came to the realization we were just going to be one kid only. Then out of nowhere in 2016, it was around November 2016, I started feeling sick and I was like, no, whatever. My mother-in-law had made dinner that night, I remember, and I threw it up. I was like, because for so many months I wanted to be pregnant. I tried and tried and tried, and I would take pregnancy test after pregnancy test, and it always came back negative. So I was like, I'm just gonna take it. It's gonna be negative. I took it, positive. I was like, what the hell? Sorry. I didn't believe it. So I took another one, positive. I was blown away. I was like, no, it can't be right. It can't be right. So I remember I had only told my sister-in-law. I was like, dude, I just took a pregnancy test and it came out positive. She's like, what? And I remember we made a shirt for my 12-year-old. Then she was, I think, 9. We made her a shirt while my husband was at work. And it said, I think it said Big Sister on it. I forgot what we wrote. And we just did it out of permanent marker on a white t-shirt. I remember that day he came home and he saw her shirt and he was surprised. And so I carried that one. We were happy. And then in February of 2017, I remember I had went to the restroom and I felt a big gush on the toilet. I was like, something's wrong. I told my husband, something is wrong. I was like, I think my water just broke. I was only 5 months pregnant. I was 19 weeks. So he's like, well, come on, let's go to the hospital. So we went to the hospital and they checked me. They checked my cervix. They did the test to see if I had amniotic fluid. They came back, they said, no, negative. You don't have no amniotic fluid around your vaginal area. Sent me home. I told my husband, I was like, something don't feel right. Something don't feel right. So we went home that day. The next morning, I woke up and my stomach was flat. I told him, I was like, something isn't right. Like, I just know it. So he's like, all right, well, let's go to another hospital. So we went to another hospital. They checked me, did ultrasound. At the first hospital, I asked them, can you do an ultrasound to make sure? They're like, oh, well, you came back negative for the amniotic fluid around your vaginal area. You don't need an ultrasound. And they sent me home. So at the second hospital, they did an ultrasound and everything, and they came back and they said, you have little to no amniotic fluid. Your water broke. I was, oh my God, it hurt. It was like, I waited so long for another baby. Why didn't God give me one and just take it away? I was so mad. And I finally realized that it just wasn't her place here on earth. She needed to go back to heaven with him. And that was our baby, Juliana. She was born at 19 weeks. Back then I didn't know anything about like rupture of the membrane or nothing. I didn't know anything about how your baby could stay in with little to no amniotic fluid. I was clueless back then. And so that day I delivered her, February 13th, 2017. The hardest day. We got to bury her and everything. And then shortly after that, we got pregnant again with our now 2, almost 3-year-old Camila. Oh, she's a tornado. I got pregnant probably like the end of February. We had her November 2017. She's a wild one, but we love her. She's everything. It's like she looks exactly like our 12-year-old when she was little. It's like I'm having my 12-year-old all over again, but the bad version of her. Because my 12-year-old was an angel. Like, she never got into anything. And Camila is completely opposite. Completely. So we had Camila November 2017. And then in 2019, we're like, hey, let's try for another one. Maybe it'll be the boy. We're like, whatever. If we get pregnant, we get pregnant. So I remember it was December. My birthday had just passed, December 1st. And we had a big party December 7th. And I don't know, something just told me, take a pregnancy test. Because we were planning, we had already went and got a bunch of liquor. We were going to drink it up that night. Something told me, take a test. I was like, let me just take a test just to be sure, just to make sure before I go out partying and drinking. I took the test that day, December 7th. I took that test early in the morning as soon as I woke up. Positive. I was like, what the heck? So immediately I told my husband, I was like, I can't drink tonight. He's like, why? I was like, I just took a pregnancy test and it came back positive. He was like, what? So we didn't tell nobody. And it was like a big party. It was my husband's cousin's 21st birthday. So everybody was planning to go all out and drink and stuff. Like I said, we had already bought a bunch of liquor and we were gonna drink, and So that night, like, we all got ready. I went and had somebody do my makeup and everything. We all got ready. And we got to the hall. Everybody's getting their tables and stuff, pulling out their liquor and drinking. I remember that night. Everybody was taking shots after shots. And so I had a little shot glass. I'd fill it up with water. And when everybody would take a shot, I would just chug it. They're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, let's drink. So I got through the night with taking shots of water. And my husband did make one comment that night. We were all sitting at the table. My sister-in-law and her boyfriend were there. And he said, everybody's drinking tonight except for one. And nobody really caught on because everybody was already drinking. So they were a little buzzed. And I guess he had mentioned something to my sister-in-law. But he looked at me and I was like, what? I'm drinking. I got like a shot glass of my water. And I was like, I'm drinking. And so everybody just, whatever, brushed it off. Well, that next morning, they were having breakfast with everybody. We went, and then we told everybody then. They're like, yeah, y'all didn't notice Cassie wasn't drinking? They're like, no, I thought she was drinking. She was taking shots. I was like, no, it was shots of water. And then, so we told them we were pregnant. And I had just found out that day before, so I haven't gone to the doctor. And so everybody, as soon as we told him, his grandma, his aunt, everybody's like, it's a boy. It's a boy. We know it's a boy. We prayed for a boy. For so long, we prayed for our boy. We're like, let's just have our boy and then that's it. We'll be good. So I remember that day I did the blood test to get it back early because I couldn't wait to find out what I was having. So sure enough, we were waiting and waiting. And Valentine's Day of 2020, I remember they sent me an email, said, oh, your results are in. I was like, oh, let me go check. I was like, okay, I'm just going to check and I'll surprise my husband. So I checked. It was a boy. So immediately I went to the store, grabbed a bunch of stuff. I made him a box. And he opened it. We went out to eat. It was Valentine's Day. We had the girls. So we just went out to eat. And at the restaurant, I gave him the box and he opened it there. That was a good day. I remember our baby boy. Well, fast forward, my pregnancy was going good. With Juliana, losing Juliana at 19 weeks, then I got pregnant with Camila. And with Camila, since my water had broke early with Camila, they put a cerclage in, which is where they sew your cervix closed. Now, I didn't know that even though you have a cerclage in, like, you still have a chance for your membrane to rupture, your water to break. I didn't know that. So with Camila, my pregnancy went good. I went all the way up to 37 weeks because of high blood pressure. I did have high blood pressure through my pregnancy with Camila. And then so with Sebastian, automatically they did a cerclage. I had high blood pressure with him. And then at the beginning, back in February of 2020, this year, I think I was around like 13 weeks. I remember I had got really sick. I thought I had the flu. Went to the hospital. I had fever, everything, the body chills, everything. Went to the hospital. They're like, no, you don't have the flu. I might have had corona, who knows. So they sent me home with, I forgot what. They said I had a viral infection. Sent me home. I got better within a couple of days. And then a couple of weeks after that, I started bleeding. I was like, oh my gosh. So there I go back to the hospital. They check me, they do an ultrasound. They're like, no, the baby's still good. They're like, he's very active. I think then I didn't know what my gender was yet. I don't remember. But they're like, oh, the baby's still active and everything. So they released me, sent me home. They're like, just keep an eye on it. If it gets too heavy, come back. I didn't even call my doctor because I just went straight to the hospital. They said everything was good, so I went home, continued my pregnancy. Bleeding had stopped a couple of days later. So I was like, okay, it was very light bleeding, but it was still, when you're pregnant and you bleed, you get scared. Especially me after everything I've been through. So we went home and continued the pregnancy. Well, I was working at a grocery store, so I was on my feet constantly. And then the pandemic hit, so it was crazy, like long lines. We were working our butts off. So it was very tiring on me being pregnant. And my husband had already told me, no, you need to quit. You can't be around all those people. What if you get sick, you're pregnant? Like, you need to think of the baby. And me, money hungry, I was like, no, okay, I'll just cut down my hours. So I had started to cut down my hours. And I was working maybe like 3 days out of the week because I still needed that money to come in. I was like, I still need money. Like, I can't just sit at home. So I continued working. My manager worked with me. She was like, just tell me whatever days you could work and I'll put you on. And then towards the end of my pregnancy, my car broke down. Oh my God. So there we were struggling. I told my manager I could only work in the morning. I was only working like 6 hours, 5 or 6 hours a day. So I would open up early in the morning, get off by 12. And then, so I was doing that for a couple of weeks. And then I remember April, I think it was like April 20 something, like around the end of April, started bleeding again. Calling my doctor this time. It was a Tuesday, I remember, because I called him and I was like, hey, I'm bleeding, can I come in so y'all could check me? They take me immediately in that day. I go get checked. He's like, oh, it was like it was gooey blood. He's like, oh, you're fine, there's nothing wrong. I was like, okay, you're not gonna do any tests if I have an infection or anything? Nothing. He just brushed it off. He's like, you're good. As long as it's not heavy bleeding, you're good. So I continued to work. I think I was off like that Wednesday. I worked that Thursday. I remember they needed me at night. So they're like, hey, can you work nights? I was like, fine. I worked that Thursday night. And then I was supposed to be off the weekend. I remember like I just felt like something wasn't right. Like I felt like my doctor should have done more to check me out. He did do an ultrasound, but his equipment's not too good. And I just felt like he didn't really care. He always told me bleeding is normal during pregnancy, but for me, like, it scares me. So he just didn't ease my worry. I was seeing a high-risk doctor as well. I was going to go to them, I think, like that next Monday or something. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to hold off. Hopefully nothing happens. I'm going to hold off and tell them, talk to him about it. He does frequent ultrasounds. He checks amniotic fluid, everything. Like, they do in-depth ultrasounds every visit. And I think I was going to him every other week. So I was like, I'm just going to try to hold off to go to him and talk to him about it. So that Friday, I remember my cousin came over, we were talking, sitting on the couch, and I kept feeling like my panties were wet. I was like, man, I'll be back. I have to go to the restroom. Went to the restroom. I think I changed my panties, sat down. And then just that week, I remember telling her, I was like, man, I think my water broke. I think I'm leaking. She's like, what? I was like, yeah, I think I'm leaking. I paid no attention to it. I was like, no, it can't be. I was scared. I was in denial. I didn't want to believe it. So Saturday, all day Saturday, we were just at home. I kept feeling like water trickling. It wasn't like heavy or nothing. Like I just kept feeling like water seep out. Like my panties would be wet. I was like, oh, maybe it's just discharge. So, because that's what your doctor puts in your head. Oh, you're just leaking discharge. It's just discharge. So I was like, okay, it's just discharge. He's a doctor. He knows. He went to school for this. He knows. And then like my heart just knew like, no, something's wrong. Something's wrong. All day Saturday, I battled with myself. My husband was like, go to the hospital. Go to the hospital. This is whenever Corona started kicking in. So they weren't letting nobody into the hospital except for the patient. So I didn't want to go alone. So all day Saturday I battled. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. And then I'd be like, no, I don't want to go, because I didn't want to hear, yes, your water broke. So finally, I think it was like 9 o'clock at night Saturday, I was like, okay, I'm going to the hospital. Finally, I got up, I went. Went to the hospital, they checked me, they checked my cervix for amniotic fluid. This was the same hospital that I went the second time with my daughter that I lost. This is the same hospital. So they checked for amniotic fluid around my vaginal area. She was like, the doctor came in and checked me. She was like, oh yeah, she was like, I could see you're very wet. She goes, well, we'll wait for the results to come back. Results came back negative, no amniotic fluid around my vaginal area. So they were like, oh, okay, we're gonna release you. Just if you feel any more fluid or a big gush or heavy bleeding, come back in. I was like, okay. So as they were getting my discharge papers ready, I started getting this bad pain in my stomach. Bad pain. Mind you, with my other kids, I never had contractions because I was induced, and right away, I got epidural. With Trinity, with Camila, I had a C-section, so they induced me, gave me epidural right away. So I didn't know what contractions were. So as they're getting my paperwork ready for me to be released, I start getting this bad pain. And I told the nurse, she was like, oh, it's probably gas. You probably have gas. I was like, yeah, that's what it felt like. It felt like gas. And then so they discharged me. I was by myself. I took the truck to the hospital. I drove myself there. So I'm leaving. It's even so hard for me to get into the truck. Like, the truck is kind of high and I'm short, so it's hard for me to get in anyways. But with this pain, like, I had to push myself to get in. It was so bad. So I got in. I was like, man, maybe I had to poop. I thought I had to go number 2. I was like, that's what it felt like. I had to go number 2. So I drive myself home with this pain. I get home. I go to the restroom. I do number 2. I was like, okay, maybe after I go, like, it'll feel good. Like, I'll feel better. I took a shower, laid down. It was already like 2 o'clock in the morning whenever I got home. Took a shower, laid down, went to sleep all night. I had this pain. I was like, man, I just tried to sleep. I was like, no, just go to sleep, like, sleep through it. Maybe when you wake up, it'll be gone. I woke up the next morning and the pain was still there. So they would come and go, come and go. I was like, okay. So I remember my husband went to go get something to eat. We were gonna eat. I was like, just go get it and come here, because it was starting, Corona, so restaurants were starting to close down. We were sitting at the table eating, and I couldn't eat. Like, I was in so much pain. It started to get worse as the day progressed. And I just told him, I remember, I was like, here, I'm just gonna put my food up, I'll eat it later. I was like, this pain is bad. So I went to the restroom. It felt like I had to poop. So I went to the restroom. And I sat there and I was like, I can't get up. Like, it felt better for me to sit down on the toilet. And I told him, I was like, no. I was like, these pains are coming more and more and more, and this pain is getting stronger. He's like, well, let's go to the hospital. So we called his mother to come get the girls. Of course, she comes right away. And so we go back to the hospital, the same hospital I had just got discharged, because that was the hospital I was planning to deliver at. We go back in. I tell him what's going on. I told him I had just got released that night before. And I told him, I was like, I think my water broke and I'm having contractions. So they do the test on me again to test my area for amniotic fluid, and the news came back positive. My water had indeed broke. Mind you, I did have a circlosion where my cervix was sewn shut to keep the baby in. So, of course, I was 24 weeks. It was a Sunday. I was 24 weeks, 4 days. Heartbroken, I remember. Started crying. Doctor came in. She's like, unfortunately, your water did break. And the hospital I was at, so at 24 weeks is pretty much when a hospital will intervene to save the baby. But the hospital I was at, they didn't intervene until 28 weeks. And they were like, we don't want to keep you here in case you have the baby sooner than that, because there's nothing we can do. So they transferred me to a hospital in the medical center, and there they intervened earlier. So I went there. I remember the whole process. I was so scared. They were like, the doctors came in, talked to me. They're like, do you know what's going on? I was like, yes, my water broke. Well, they started talking to me. I found this group on Facebook, and I started reading all these stories. They're like, if your water breaks, you can wait. You could try to hold your baby in as long as possible and wait. So then I started doing research and stuff, talking to the doctors. And they told me, they're like, so we plan to keep your cerclage in, to keep the baby in, and wait to see how long we can go. Their goal was to get to 28 weeks, because they said at 28 weeks, baby had less chance of having complications. So my goal was 28 weeks. I was only 24. So I was trying and trying. I sat there I lasted in the hospital for about a good week and a half. Mind you, I had to leave my kids with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. I was pretty much in the hospital by myself, because once they moved me from labor and delivery to antepartum, my husband couldn't stay the night with me. So I was, oh my God, it was so depressing. They weren't allowing him to stay the night. He was still working because we still needed income to come in. he wanted to keep working that way. Once I had the baby, he would be able to take some days off. So he got off work at 5, and the hospital stopped visitations at 6. We live, mind you, about 30 minutes away, plus traffic. He could never make it there in time to come see me. So I was pretty much in the hospital by myself. He would try some days to get off early to come to see me. And it was just so hard. I felt so lonely. I couldn't see my kids. Like, I would FaceTime them every day, but it's not the same as seeing your kids when you're used to being around them, like, every day. So, I was really depressed in the hospital. They kept coming in and telling me, doctors were like, you have to stop crying. I would cry, like, so much. They're like, you have to stop crying because your baby can feel it. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of hard. I'm here alone. And then the room I was in, it was so depressing. It was, like, really dark and super depressing. I really didn't tell nobody except for close family what was going on. And then I was every day. It was even harder for me because they would be like, oh, they couldn't pick up the baby's heartbeat. They couldn't keep a constant monitor on him because he was moving so much. But they couldn't get a good heartbeat or a good reading for him. So there would be days where they would put me on NPO, which means I wasn't able to eat. So I would go pretty much the whole day without eating. So I was so angry. Like, I was hungry. I was on magnesium. If you've never been on magnesium, it makes you sick. Like, flu-like symptoms, makes you sick. Gives you headaches. So I was already feeling groggy with that medication, and then telling me I couldn't eat. And then I had to be on constant monitoring. So they were constantly coming in my room trying to readjust my monitors to read his heartbeat. I was just agitated. I was so angry, and I would take it out on the nurses. Sorry if you ever see this. It was a very hard time for me. Hard. All because of stupid Corona. And, so they kept monitoring him. They're like, oh, he's doing good. They're like, you're doing good, Miss Cruz. Let's just push it to 28 weeks. You're almost there. I remember I was 26 weeks. Every day, like, I would count on, like, okay, yes, one day closer. So I got to 26 weeks and one day. I remember they took me to go get an ultrasound that morning. And not too long after, it was like around 10 a.m. They came in and they were like, the doctors don't really like how he keeps, his heart keeps desatting, and they just couldn't keep a good heart rate for him. So they're like, they do some tests and evaluate the baby, and he failed that test. So they're like, we're gonna deliver him today. I was like, oh my God. I did have a panic attack in the hospital. I think my first ever. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I just remember I couldn't breathe. I was like, oh my God, it was scary. I thought I was dying. And I felt like I was about to have another one that day that they told me I was gonna deliver. So immediately my husband was at work, and I kept telling out every day. I would remind them, please, if y'all gonna send me back for a C-section, please let me know ahead of time because I need to call my husband so he can make it here. I was already alone. I didn't want to go through delivery alone. So they told me ahead of time, so I called him immediately. I was like, you need to get here right now. They're going to deliver. So his bosses are very understanding. They let him leave. They had already known what was going on. They let him leave. And so he got there to the hospital in time, and sure enough, as soon as he got there, they told him they were getting me ready to send me back to the operating room. They got him prepared. They got him in his little outfit or whatever. And the whole time while I was in the hospital, they had trouble with my IVs. Like, pretty much every day I was getting a different IV. If it wasn't every day, it was every other day. So I had bruises, like, everywhere on my arm. It got to the point where they could only get them in my hand. So that day, my IV had blew. And so there was, on the operating table, they were trying to put in another IV because the one that I had blew. And they couldn't get me the medications that they needed to calm me down, and some other medications that they give you right before C-section. So they got it in, and then the doctor, anesthesiologist, came in to do my epidural. I've gotten 3 epidural. This was my 3rd one, so I kind of knew the whole process. But this one, he was taking forever. Like, and when I mean forever, it was forever. I was already getting, like, agitated. I didn't eat that day because they had stopped my eating already because they kind of figured they were going to deliver me. So, again, I was agitated. He was taking forever. And I just wanted to get it over with. So finally he did get it in, and I felt everything. I felt him sticking the thing up my back, and oh, it was horrible. But I will say, with Camila, I had a C-section, and that C-section was the worst. I pretty much felt everything afterwards, like when they were sewing me up and stuff. It was the worst. I was in so much pain. I cried. And so with Sebastian, I was scared because I had went through a horrible C-section with Camila. They take him back to the NICU. My husband sees him. They take me to the recovery room. I don't really remember that day. I don't think I saw him that day. I think my husband went and I FaceTimed him. I don't think I got to see him until like the next day. I don't remember. So he was doing good that first week. He was doing good. They had him on the ventilators and everything because he couldn't breathe on his own. Then it was around when he turned 1 week old is when everything started changing. His breathing got worse. It started going up to 100%. He was doing bad. He started getting infections very easy, so he would get really sick. I didn't get to hold him until around, like, I think he had 41 days. So that was hard. And then he had numerous blood transfusions. He's had many tests. I remember at one point they told us that he had a brain bleed, and then later to come back, I think it was like a week later, they're like, oh, we don't see nothing. Because he's had many infections. They came and told us that his lungs were pretty bad. And over the months, they just weren't getting better. He told us he had hypertension. And it was bad. There was one point where they did come and tell us his hypertension is very bad and he's right on the edge of death. That was hard. For them to tell you that your son's probably gonna die. So this is Camila. Say hi, Camila. This is our 2-year-old. We got Trinity behind the camera. So when he was in July of 2020 this year, we had him May 7th. I remember it was a couple of days after Cinco de Mayo. We had him May 7th. So in July, around 2 months old, he got a very, very bad infection. That's actually when they told us that he was on the edge of death. He was on antibiotics for 21 days. He fought and fought and fought. He overcame his infection. During that time, he did start to swell up. His edema got really bad. So he was on antibiotics for 21 days, and I remember he ended that. It was around August 5th when he quit his antibiotics. He got over that infection. He started to do good. His oxygen fluctuated. One day he'd be down to 60. The next day he would shoot back up to 100. He kept on that for a couple of weeks. I was confused. I was like, what's going on? They're like, well, with this last infection, it really messed up his lungs. So he's really fighting. They started talking about a trach. At first, I didn't know anything about trach. I was like, no, my son's not getting that. Because I thought it was something he would have to have for the rest of his life. Then I started talking to moms about it in my preemie group on Facebook. And they informed me that no, it's not for the rest of their lives. For a couple of years, once they progress and get better, they take the trach out and they close the hole. So then I was like, okay, well, maybe. So then they started talking to me more and more. They started introducing me to other women whose babies got trachs. And so they started telling me stories about how it changed their babies' lives for the better. How they started improving more. And one lady really stuck out to me. She told me, I wish I would have done it sooner. I wish I would have pushed sooner to get it for my son. So then I was like, And they told me that he was going to have to get a trach, that there was no way around it. He probably wouldn't survive without it. Or he would be on a ventilator forever, which is not good for your lungs, a baby's lungs. It can actually damage their lungs more, which the ventilator has done for Sebastian. So I finally came to the realization that he was going to need a trach. So we were at this hospital where I delivered him, where I was in the hospital for a good week and a half. We were there. He had just hit 100 days in the hospital. I remember we celebrated. I got a little sign made for him, and I fixed up a shirt, button-up shirt for him to wear. Took pictures of him, and I started thinking, I was like, we were here already 3 months. He wasn't progressing any, nothing was changing, everything was the same. Like, I would ask questions, I would get insight from mommies from my preemie group because they've been through it. I would ask them, what do I need to ask them? What do I need to do? And they would tell me their experience and say, have me ask this question. And so I would ask the doctors, and it always came back like, oh, well, we don't know. We just need to give Sebastian time. He needs time. That was always their answer. They never knew anything. They never had answers for any of my questions. So eventually I got tired of always hearing, well, we don't know. We just need to give him time. I was like, I'm tired of hearing this. So I got tired of just the runaround. It was getting old. I started talking to moms who had their babies at the same hospital I was at. And they started telling me they were going through the same thing. Like, their babies were there for a long time, and they were getting the same answers. They were telling them, oh, well, we just don't know. We just don't know. Same exact thing that I was going through. Well, they started talking about how they wanted to move their kids to Texas Children's. I was like, Then I heard that they had a pulmonary hypertension team at Texas Children who work with babies, which is what my son had, pulmonary hypertension. So I started asking questions. They had set up a meeting, I remember that week, a family meeting for me to meet with the doctors, for me and my husband to meet with all his care team, respiratory, everybody. His primary nurse was there. We went to the meeting, really felt like we didn't get anywhere. I wanted to know what their plans were, what his, just what their plans were. And then the meeting, like, I really didn't get any answers. So we continued to go on. He wasn't getting any better. He was just staying the same. His edema was getting bad. I remember that it was a weekend, I think it was a Thursday. They put him on a LASIK drip for the medication to help release all the extra fluid he had. It did great. He was on it all weekend. He lost a lot of weight. He lost all the extra fluid. He looked like a newborn baby. And then once they took him off, he remained, he was doing good with his fluids and stuff for a while. Well, then at the meeting, I did mention about moving him to Texas Children, and they would tell me, oh, well, there's nothing they could do for him over there that we aren't doing here. And the doctor that was with him, because they changed doctors every week at the hospital we're at, and the doctor that was on that week, she was like, well, I can talk to them, call over there and consult with them and see if there's anything more that they could do over there that we aren't doing here. At this hospital, they did mention about paralyzing him. they said that was the last resort, that they didn't want to do that. Because even if they paralyze him, because he was battling with all the edema, that paralyzing him would make it worse because he wasn't able to move around. And for the edema, for the fluids to move, it's better for the babies to be moving around. So they said that was the last resort, that if they couldn't figure out how to get his hypertension under control and get his oxygen down and stuff, that they were going to have to paralyze him. So I started pushing and pushing and pushing for him to get transferred to Texas Children. They kept telling me no. They're like, oh, that hardly happens. They hardly approve it. I feel like they were telling me this to scare me so I wouldn't push so much. But I kept trying. Even the head doctor in the NICU, he was like, there's nothing they could do for him over there that we aren't doing here. I'm not sure if it was like a money thing, a pride thing, or what, but I just felt like I wanted to make sure I was doing everything I could for my son. And if we got to the point at this hospital where they couldn't help him anymore, then I wanted to move him to a hospital that would be able to help him. So I talked to my husband about it, and he's like, he was kind of iffy. I was like, but they have a hypertension team over there. Like, I want to make sure that he's getting the best care because nothing's happening at the hospital we're at. He's like, oh, if you feel that's what he needs, then we'll do it. So I kept pushing it. Every time they would call me, I would ask. So one day it got to the point where I started crying to the doctor. I was like, he's not getting any better here. He's not progressing. Nothing's helping him here. I want to move him. She's like, okay, fine. We'll do the paperwork. We'll get everything started. So finally, they started the process for transportation. She was like, well, it's up to your insurance if they approve it or not. So moms were telling me that I needed to call to Texas Children and to get the ball rolling. I called over there. They're like, no, the doctor at the hospital that you're at needs to get the ball rolling. Parents can't do it. So finally she agreed to it. And they're like, well, it depends on your insurance if they approve it. We're on Medicaid. So that scared me. I was like, oh my God. I remember it was a Thursday that they were going to start the process. That they started the process. No, she said she was going to start it Friday morning. She goes, oh, but we probably won't hear nothing back until like next week because it's going to be the weekend and they don't work over the weekend. I was like, that's fine as long as we get the process started. So Saturday morning, I told my husband, I was like, hey, I'm going to go spend the morning with Sebastian. Because of the whole corona, we both couldn't go in at the same time. It was one parent for the whole day. So if I went one day, my husband would have to wait till the next day to go. So I was like, I'm going to go spend Saturday morning with him. He's like, okay. So I was there. They had just got the process started for transportation that Friday before. I was there just visiting. I didn't expect anything to happen because she had told me that they don't work over the weekend. I was like, okay, whatever. So I had just went to visit. And the doctor comes in. She's all mad because I want to get my son transferred. She's like, well, they approved your transportation and he's going to move to Texas Children. Like inside, I was like, yes. So that day, that Saturday, they moved him. And like within 2 hours of her coming to tell me that they approved it, they moved him. I remember I called my husband. I was like, you have to go pick up the truck. I was like, I'm going to ride in the ambulance with him over there. And he had somebody go take him to pick up the truck. So I went with him in the ambulance to Texas Children. And it was a good day. I felt good. Like I was going to get my son the care that he needed. Even if it took a lot more time, I knew that I did everything I could for him. So we are currently still in Texas Children's Hospital. He will be 5 months, October 7th. I will say he has progressed. He was on this medication called nitric oxide. It would help his lungs. He got off of nitric oxide. He has been paralyzed here at Texas Children quite a bit. And his edema has flared up a lot. They're having trouble getting the extra fluid off. That's probably like one of the biggest problems right now. So they have attempted to take him off of the paralyzing medication several times, and when they take him off, he doesn't do good. So they have to put him back on the paralyzing medication. And as much as it hurts for me to go there and just see my son just laying there lifeless, like I know it's doing good for him because his body's able to rest and grow. His lungs are able to grow because he was fighting the ventilator. He was trying to do all the work, so his body was just working too hard, and his lungs weren't able to grow because he was just working too hard. It was making his heart work too hard. So with his chronic lung disease, his hypertension, like it was better for him to be paralyzed. So he is currently paralyzed, and just this week, they're considering so I had asked, so now that he's at this new hospital, now I'm pushing for a trach. I keep asking the doctors here. Doctors stay on longer than at the other hospital. At the other hospital, they would change every week. So I felt like it wasn't the same care every week. Every doctor's different. So they really didn't get to, like, they knew him because they would work with him before. But I don't know. I don't think a week is long enough. So here at this hospital, the doctors stay on longer. And so they get to know the babies more. They work with them closer because they're with them longer. And so now I'm pushing for a trach. I had asked what were the requirements for him to get one. They said he had to be off of nitric, which he was still on, and he was nowhere close to coming off. He had to be off of nitric, and his oxygen level had to be 60 or below for a week for them to even consider him to get a trach, because no doctor would work on him that sick. So I was heartbroken. I was like, it's going to be forever before he gets one, because he's so far from, they had attempted to take him off nitric. He only lasted 24 hours. So they had to put him back on. So once they told me that, I was like, he's not going to get one anytime soon. So we just continued to work with him, and we would go visit him. Even though he's paralyzed, he could still hear you. So I would go in and talk to him. Well, last Saturday, today's Friday, so last Friday they started weaning his nitric. He got down, and Saturday morning he got off nitric oxide. He's been off. It's gonna be a week already. I'm so happy. So last time they took him off the nitric oxide, the next day, they tried to take him off the paralyzing medication, and he didn't last, so they had to put him back on. So this time I pushed for them to keep him on the paralyzing medication, and they did. So it'll give his body time to get used to being off the nitric. So we are about to approach a week off nitric, and his oxygen has been down in the 40s. For the longest, they kept it at 60 because they didn't want to push him too much. So he's down in the 40s. So this past week he did, every Thursday they have a meeting for babies that are eligible for a trach, and his name was entered into the meeting for them to evaluate him. So we're waiting for him. That they think the only thing that would stop him now is his edema, because he's so swollen. The biggest area that swells the most is his head. So if you see him, like, his arms, his hands are so skinny, his feet are so skinny, but his head is so big. It's mostly where all the fluid is. Excuse my kid. So we're waiting for that. They have to be able to access his neck, and he's so swollen around here. Like, that's where we currently are at. Like I said, he's about to be 5 months. And I'm just scared about the whole process. I want him to hurry up and get it so that he can get better and come home. But I want to make sure that he's strong enough and he'll be able to survive through the surgery. Any questions you have, just ask them. I can do a video of all the questions. Oh my God. But yeah, I just wanted to give you a little insight of how things have been going for us so far. I will say 2020 has been a good year because we got our little boy, but it's been a bad year because of everything that we've been going through. It's really harder. I think having a kid in the NICU is the hardest thing that we have been through. It's super difficult. Having to get to the hospital to see your kids, especially when you have kids at home. And now my oldest, she's doing classes here at home online. So I have her doing online classes. I have the 2-year-old. People do offer to watch the girls for us while we go to the hospital, but I don't know, I just feel guilty. I feel like there are kids and we have to take care of them. I will say that I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, like having a kid in the NICU is the worst. It's a roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster. Like, your kid could be doing so good one week, and then bam, the next week they're back up to 100%. Everything changes. I mean, like, you want your baby to get better. You want them to hurry up and come home. But I read stories of kids that are in there for months, up to like their first birthday. And it's hard. I kind of want my kids to have to spend their whole first year in the hospital. And then just the whole working situation. I'm not working right now because it's difficult. They do call me during the day to give me updates on him, because we're without a vehicle. We only have one vehicle. Oh, it's my husband's work truck. So he goes to work during the day, and so we go at night to see him once he gets off work. It just, everything is, it's hard. It's super hard. I don't know how people do it. I just pray that we don't have to do it too much longer. He can come home soon. I'm not doing this video for people to feel sorry for us. I just wanted to inform you all. And for other parents who are going to go through it, who are about to go through it, for moms that are currently in the hospital going through what I went through on bed rest. The journey is about to begin for them. There are a lot of preemie groups on Facebook that, oh man, they've helped so much. Because I could talk to my family, I could talk to friends. What are friends? I'm just kidding. I could talk to people that constantly check on me. They check and ask, oh, how's Sebastian? I mean, I really don't know what to tell them, because I want to tell them he's not home, he's still in the hospital. Like, it's hard. So I could talk to them. So yeah, I just wanted to do this video to inform everybody what we went through, what we're going through. Like I said, I plan to do another video once the journey of his trach. You have anything to say, Camila? No, I don't want ketchup. Can't even record because she was in the room crying to come out.
Mommy,
I plan to do more videos. I'll see what I could record in the hospital of him. But I do plan to just vlog the whole journey. This one was kind of a fast one. Because it's already going to be 5 months of being here. And yeah, hope you continue on our journey of our crazy, crazy life of us cruising through the NICU. So one thing that does still, like, I guess you could say still hurts, I'm not sure how to explain it. It's not that I'm jealous, but I do feel like I missed out on my pregnancy because I didn't get to go the whole way. And even now, like, whenever I see pictures or videos of people having their baby, like, it hurts. because I feel like I didn't get to enjoy my pregnancy because I was worried the whole time, and I had him early. So it's hard for me to see people deliver their babies full term. And whenever I hear people complain about, oh, I'm so tired of being pregnant, like, whenever I read it on Facebook, comments like that, I just want to reach to their phone and slap them, because I would die to be able to go full term, to be able to not have to go through what we're going through. I wish I was able to carry my baby all the way to 40 weeks and have him and come home and enjoy life, but that's not the plans God had. I'm not sure why we're going through this, but if this video can help someone else, then
What the heck?
I'm doing my job. So yeah. And then something else that's really hard on me is whenever, like, I like to be a part of the mom preemie groups on Facebook because they help me a lot, and I'm able to talk to them because they understand everything I'm going through. But it hurts whenever I hear stories of babies who were born around the same gestation as Sebastian, 26 weeks or sooner, and they have no complications. Like, that hurts. And they don't spend that much time in the NICU and get to go home. It's like, why couldn't we be so lucky? But I'm learning to deal with the cards that have been dealt to us, and I just pray that my story helps anybody that's going through this, or who's about to go through it, who's just starting their NICU journey. I don't know everything, but any questions I can help, I will. Like I said, it's still a learning experience for me. I feel lost whenever they start throwing medical terms out at me. I'm like, wait, explain that to me again. But yeah, that's just my goal for this whole video. Just if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. I'll try to get to them. I hope that you subscribe, because I do plan to do more videos in the future.
I did the picture. Mommy, I did the picture.
Just subscribe to my channel. That way you can be updated whenever I do more videos. And thank you for watching. I know it was a really long video. Thank you for watching. Bye.